This is Mr. Kitchens. Today we're going to cover some geometry proof concepts and related information to help you out. So as you can see right now, I'm in the geometry lesson 3.01. I just wanted to point a few important things out real quick. We're going to cover proof resources, and I'm going to do a vertical angle proof and kind of show how that relates to the corresponding angles proof. And later on I'll talk about equidistance proofs, and these will probably be broken up into separate videos. But to start with, let's look at the proof resources. If you look in your lesson over here where there's a protractor, that protractor says, if you look at that, it says view the proof resources. It's just a long list of really good information that you'll learn as you go through the section here. But, you know, we don't remember all these terms, and that's understandable because some of them are long and wordy, and the words don't make sense all the time. So what I like to do is I pulled this proof resources into a separate document. It's a Google Doc, and I've shared that with you all. And I believe it's either, if it's not in the welcome letter, it's probably in the clarifications or how-to file. And if you need to know where it's at, I can just let me know. Send me an email. I'll share it with you again. Ideally, what you ought to do is you ought to make a copy of it, and then you can start making this your own document. So you know, adding pictures. So what I've done to this is, for example, alternate interior angles theorem. I went ahead and I took alternate angles theorem. I didn't have visuals for that in this document, so I said let's copy this and let's go over to Google and let's just type in alternate angles, push enter, and you get, and make sure you're clicked on the images, and you'll see all sorts of fantastic visuals. And you want to look for one that has maybe some color coding. And like this one here looks like alternate exterior angles. So you want to look for the right one. That looks like interior, but there's no words that kind of describe that. And if you go down the line, you'll probably find some here. Here's some good ones right here. But just pick a good visual that you like. And then you can bring that visual back into your Google, your proof references document here. And that's what I've done here. So now I have a visual that shows me what the alternate interior angles looks like. If you're sitting there and you're looking at this image, and in this case we don't have parallel lines, but if we did, and you weren't sure if it was alternate interior, unless you just knew it was interior, you just had some word in your mind. That's one thing good about this document, is I can do a Control F, and I want to write that down. Control F. If you have a Mac, it's Command F. Those two keys let you search for searching. And they'll let you quickly search for words. So like, let's say I didn't have any idea about alternate interior. I just remember something about exterior angles or interior. So I put exterior in there, and I can just start going through these, and you know, I can see the sample examples and go, you know, that's not really what I'm talking about. And then the very next exterior, there's only 5 times where exterior occurs. Alternate exterior angles, that might be the one I'm talking about, but there's not a visual. So if you're still stumped on that, this is where you want to go back out to Google, type that in, get an image, and then see exactly what they're talking about. With alternate exterior angles, what you're talking about is if you have 2 parallel lines and a transversal, exterior means it's on the outside of the lines, so out here somewhere. Now, if they're alternating, the alternating means that they go on opposite sides of the transversal. So alternate exterior angles might be this guy here, that angle right here. I don't know if you can see that yellow highlight, and this guy over here. Those would be alternate exterior. Now, if I was looking at alternate interior, I might choose these two, because this is on the inside of the parallel lines, and so is this, but they're alternating. They're on opposite sides of the transversal. So those would be alternate interior angles. If I were dealing with corresponding angles, let's say I started with this yellow highlight, I'll call that angle 1, and let's say if this is 2 and 3 and 4, 5, 6 here, 7 and 8. Corresponding, if you treat each of one of these corners like an intersection on the city, so 1, 2, 3, 4, they make one intersection in the city. Let's kind of turn this around a little bit. So let's say we had angle 1 was in the northeast section of the city, or of the block. you want to find on another block a corresponding block. The block. So 6 is also the northeast corner of this block. So 6 on this group is corresponding to 1 over here. So 6 and 1 would be corresponding angles. And the same goes from 2 and 5, 3 and 7, and 4 and 8. Okay? Just a real quickie on those two, and now I want to kind of get you into the vertical angles proof. Again, if you're stumped on what you're doing as far as terms, just use this resources document. It's got a ton of information. It's going to be really helpful for you. And making it searchable is what is the key here. So here on the problem, this came from a problem in your I think 3.1, one of the quiz at the end. The key on these things is when you get to those quizzes, they give you multiple choice options. You really want to do the proof yourself. So do the proof yourself. You don't want to get there looking at that image and trying to guess what they're doing and whether or not they got it right, because your eye is not as critical and your brain is not as critical when you just read over something that's put in front of you. So you really want to work that vertical angles proof yourself. So again, we're trying to prove vertical angles are congruent. So that's the proof. Vertical angles are congruent. So and the way they do this is they come through here and you can pick any vertical angles. First of all, you need to know what they are. So if you're stumped on that, you can either Google it or you can look in here, vertical angles. And it just says vertical angles are congruent, right? So this doesn't help me a lot. So what I want to do is I want to search this, find an image of it in Google, and then I'll paste that in there. And then once again, we're going to make this document even better for ourselves. So vertical angles, basically, if you look at this diagram, vertical angles would be the 2 and the 4. And if what you can see is those two angles, the letters formed by these yellow lines are two V's. So V for vertical. So we're focusing on, let's say, angle 2 and angle 4. Let's prove that angle 2 and angle 4 are congruent. So I'm going to start off, first of all, recognizing that I've got a straight line here. So that tells me right away that these angles 1 and angle 2 are supplementary angles. So I'm going to say angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. And I'm going to just write something along the lines of supplementary angles. And now, since I'm trying to get to 2 and 4, the next thing they show you is, well, we can say the same thing about 1 and 4. So let's just go ahead and do this. And I'm going to show you why this is, and that's the same thing. And I said congruent. What I meant to say here, I'm getting crossed up. Those added together equal 180 degrees. So angle 1 and angle 2 equals 180, and angle 1 and 4 equals 180. See, even teachers can have little brain shorts. So once again, 1 and 2, because they're on the same line, they're supplementary angles. I wonder how many of you caught that. And because they're supplementary, that means they add to 180. Complementary angles add up to 90. These are supplementary, they add to 180. 1 and 4 are supplementary, they also add to 180. So this is important because now we have two different things, both equal 180. If they each equal 180, this whole chunk here equals 180, this whole chunk equals 180. It's almost like saying this whole chunk here would be like this, we'll call it chunk A. And this is chunk B. Well, if A equals 180 and B equals 180, well, A must equal B, right? That's a therefore symbol. And because of that, you don't need to put all this in the proof, but it's just kind of explaining how this works. So what it means is 1 plus 2 is chunk A. That's got to equal 1 plus angle 4. This is called the transitive property of equality. Okay. Well, now we can kind of look at our algebra here, and basically, if we have the same thing on both sides, we can actually subtract those out. So we're going to subtract an angle 1, and those will cancel out, and I get angle 2 equals angle 4, and this would become the subtraction property of equality. Okay, so now notice we have an equal sign. We don't have a congruent. We're trying to get to congruency. And so the difference between angles equaling each other and being congruent is a little more stiffer requirement. Congruent, you're talking about size and shape. When you're talking about equals, you're really just talking about the size, the number. So the angle degree, the degrees equal. The great thing about angles, though, is that the degrees pretty much gives you what the angle is. So we can just say, well, since the angles are equal, we know that angle 2 is also congruent to angle 4. And that's definition of congruent angles. Something like that. And that was our goal. So we have reached our goal, and we've proven that the vertical angles 2 and 4 are congruent to each other. And we used a couple properties like transitive and subtraction and definition congruency. We recognize the supplementary angles are on the line. Now, once we've done that proof, when you look at your quiz at the end of an assignment in Brain Honey, it'll say, show us where this proof went wrong, or what's the next step. Once you've done this proof, you're going to have a really solid idea of how to do it, and it will be a lot easier to critique somebody else's work. Now, they may have used 2 and 3 and 3 and 4, or some other combination. Don't get too worried about that. Just know the process. Follow the logic, and you'll be really well off. Hope that helps. You have a good day.